Today's show is pure gold with four-time world champion skater Curt Browning, Olympic gold medal winner Bruny Surin, seven-time Canadian sprint champ Olympic hero Curt Harnett, and the rising star and Canadian figure skating champ Jeff Buttle. What a lineup on this Good Friday edition of OTR.
Off the Record with Michael Landsberg is brought to you by the Cake Steakhouse and Bar. For great steaks, good friends, see you tonight.
Today's show has got so much championship clout on it, I feel like we should stand and play the anthem to start it off. We're so proud of all of these guys, including Jeff Buttle. True or false, you have not returned home. You came directly from Russia to this set.
True.
The silver medalist in the World Championships 22 years. And that, of course, is Curt Browning sniffing Jeff Buttle, sniffing around for maybe another medal.
Yep, I smell potential.
Curt Browning, maybe I should introduce you right now.
Sure.
Just to tell the control room, why don't we say Curt Browning, one of the greatest skaters in the history of the planet. Forget Canada, 4 world championships, and you were one of the guys that was so athletic, you tugged your sports in a certain direction, and I've been a huge fan of yours for years. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Great introduction. I'm done.
Bruny Surin. No, you're not done. I'm done.
Okay.
Bruny Surin, you're done. Retired in 2002, but you retired with Olympic medal around your neck from 1996. What a thrill that was, and one of the classiest sprinters we've ever had. Good to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
And Curt Harnett. Will there be a smattering of applause for this man?
No.
Just for his hair.
He didn't win. Hey, you know what? It goes beyond that. You got to mention the fact that this is a guy who won a silver and 2 bronze medals in the Olympics, and a great friend of mine in the show. Good to see you, Curt.
Thanks, man.
All right, you guys ready?
Yes.
Let's go. Right now, the sports world has a crisis on its hands, and that crisis is steroids. Fans don't believe that great accomplishments can come without enhancing your body. And there are a lot of cheaters out there, clearly, who have proven that point. Can this situation ever be fixed in the amateurs or the pros, or do we have to live with the fact that some guys will always cheat?
Some guys will always cheat because they have to, and everyone else is doing it, so you think to yourself, am I going to get left behind, or am I going to join the bandwagon? And also, if there's no repercussions for doing it, then why not do it? Except for your own
Sport's
body.
such a reflection on society, and that's what we have to come to conclusions with, is that there's always going to be people thinking that that's the only way that they're going to get ahead, and there's always that donkey in the pack that thinks that that's the only way they're going to become a racehorse. And the professional sport world is one that perpetrates that sort of ongoing, this is what I need to do. So many people in the sport world feel that that's the only way that they're going to make their progression through it. And we have to live with it. And I don't think the public really cares.
The accomplishments of some obviously positive testers, but guys who are the greatest ever. I mean, Barry Bonds, for instance, he's the guy that's in the news. You can call him anything you want. You can't deny the fact that this is one of the greatest ever.
I'm not denying the fact that there were some great athletes that felt that was the only thing, and maybe that just put them over the edge that little bit. But at the same time, it's going to be there. It's never going to go away. They're always going to be testing that edge, and it's always going to be one of those things we have to live with.
When does it come to the point where you're respecting the athlete, or you're respecting the athlete and his great pharmacist? Like, where do we draw the line afterwards? Yeah.
Well, with Balco, everybody respected the shop until somebody became disgruntled.
Balco's the lad that was providing Barry Bonds, and apparently Montgomery and Marion Jones.
It was a disgruntled coach that came forward and said, "This is, you guys better start testing for this stuff because nobody knows it's even existence." And that's always the task or the challenge an athlete that decides to cheat is always going to have to face, is knowing that there's always somebody behind the door or around the corner that knows that they're doing something wrong. And if an athlete can live with that, then so be it. I lived in a sport that is rampant in the world.
Are we going to have to make a donation after this sermon?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. To the purchase Margaret Hospital if you want. But it's one of those things that you have to just really look back and go, hey, you know what? It's always there.
But you know what? I think that there are always going to be cheaters. There's always going to be drug in sport. But at the same time, like these athletes also, we have to give a message also to the young people, say that it is possible to do great things drug-free. It might take longer, but because now the message I'm hearing, like it's like, oh yeah, well, if you want to be this great athlete, you have to take drugs. I mean, what kind of message we give to the younger athletes? It's not right.
You know, you made reference to donkeys, right? Which is, and I want to tie this in. I'm not criticizing, but you're referring to athletes that maybe aren't great athletes, but can get better because of steroids. What do we make of the greatest accomplishments that we know were fueled with steroids? And I got to throw at Ben Johnson, his time of 9.79 in 1988. Can we say, regardless of whether he was positive or not, that's still one of the greatest achievements in the history of mankind?
Yeah. Well, today I'm still looking at the race when Ben did in 1988. I mean, it's a great race, but at the same time you say, well, it's cheated. I mean, after Ben tried to run with no drug. Well, he wasn't
Well, actually,
as
he tried,
successful.
actually, afterwards, he tried to run with drugs again.
Yeah, exactly.
That got him in a little trouble.
I'm going to defend that statement a little bit because I really feel that maybe it gets misguided because there are athletes that are at the peak of the form, the best athletes in the world, and Barry Bonds is a great example. Let's hold that up to the light a little bit because he really is a fantastic athlete.
Fantastic athlete,
Because
we'll
again,
never know.
he still has to hit the ball.
We'll
He
never
still
know.
has to hit the
Of
ball.
course, but
but
how
at the
far?
same
He
time, I
wouldn't hit it
think
very
that
far
drugs
before.
are
Who
more
knows?
rampant in the common rank and file of in sports like hockey, in baseball, where these are the athletes that know that they just to even make it into the show, even to make it to the game, this is what they had to do. They were sort of has-beens or lightweights in the rank and file of the minorities, and they had to make it through.
I just feel you make it in Hollywood because all of a sudden your breasts are enhanced, and that's okay. But somehow in sports, it's not.
Or you
cool,
slept on
know?
the couch in a
Slept on the
different
couch.
way.
I don't know,
And
whatever you want. But there's certain ways in sporting achievements against each other, physical, mano a mano, the whole thing.
Is there any
if you
lure
can't
of-
measure it anymore because it's fixed, it's just not as much
I
fun.
like the way you wouldn't let me stop you there. That was good, Curt.
Thanks.
Is there any benefit to performance-enhancing drugs in what you guys do? I mean, obviously, in track it was huge. Obviously, in cycling it's been huge. But how about figure skating?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's always going to be, some chemical that's going to enhance each sport individually. I mean, I just think in our sport, it's not really advantageous to be heavier or it's really,
It's a good credit
tricky.
card gifts to the judges.
Yeah.
But it's also a misnomer that steroids build muscle mass. I mean, it's also misunderstood. It's just that the only way you're going to catch somebody that's on steroids is because they're big and bulky. I mean, steroids are around for a number of other
Now,
reasons.
you get
in
defensive
recovery.
because you were one of the biggest, bulkiest guys ever, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of your lower body.
I
People looked
couldn't
at you
turn
and
a corner.
People looked at you though, Curt Harnett, and they said, "Guy's going to be on steroids. No one can have those legs naturally."
Absolutely.
And does that piss you off?
No, it's if that's what they want to, if that's the way that they can only judge me, they don't know me as a person. If that's what they felt the only way to succeed in life is to cheat, then that's their opinion, and those are people that perhaps are a little light in their ability to succeed themselves. That's all.
Is it reasonable ever to assume that athletes, you see, a sport says, okay, we're testing now, and we make the assumption then, or at least some people do, that people are clean. Can we ever make the assumption, given what we know and all the negatives that we've seen, can we ever have any real faith in athletes in sports like these guys have competed in, that all of a sudden now they're clean?
I don't think so because it just seems like when one half of the party gets smarter, the other half gets smarter, and then they can mask and double mask, and it's like the radar gun for the radar detector, detector.
That's true. That's true. I mean,
I know when I was skating and figure skating, why do steroids in skating? It's not going to help. That was the mindset. And yet my competitor's thighs got twice as big in one season, and I'm sitting there bored going, wasn't
wow,
as much
really?
fun.
So you looked around at other guys and you thought, well,
I looked around, what are they doing that I'm not?
And I guess you came to the conclusion that it had nothing to do with training. It had everything to do with that little extra. You know what I'm feeling here? We need a wide shot for this. This is almost like a huddle in a football game. They're all lean forward.
It's your
and
chair.
I'm sitting back. How come you guys are excluding me?
I'm not strong enough to get out of the chair once I sit back.
You know what? You know what?
Yeah.
It'll help. Yeah. You know what? I'm loving today's show, and I got to say I'm loving the fact that Curt, Browning, and Jeff Buttle are on today's show. We're going to go to break and tell you who's on next Wednesday's show. His name is Dave Morissette. He's the guy that kind of blew the whistle on the NHL and steroids. Dave Morissette talking steroids and more on OTR next Wednesday.
Off the Record with Michael Landsberg is brought to you by the Keg Steakhouse and Bar. For great steaks, good friends, see you tonight.
So what was that? There should be fighting.
Should be fighting in the 5-minute warm-up at figure
Well,
skating.
I still think they should put everybody on the ice in figure skating and just have a free-for-all.
Until
Guys
one
crash
man,
up derby till
one
the last
sequin
man
guy
standing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You guys are all about disrupting the flow of the show,
Sure.
which I totally admire. All right, Todd
know we're
Bertuzzi, forever, of course, going to be remembered for the guy who, being the guy who broke Steve Moore's neck. But respect him or not, he is an extraordinary hockey player. Do you want him representing Canada at the World Championships coming up in Vienna? In order for him to do so, the NHL would have to lift its suspension. The question is, do you want him wearing the maple leaf?
I mean, as a Canadian, I've been raised in Canada for many years. I mean, this story is, to me, is too fresh right now. And having a guy like that representing my country, I don't agree with that.
Well put.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, if we send him over there representing our country, then we're maybe saying as a country that violence in sport is okay to that
but
extent.
hasn't he done his time? Hasn't he served his penalty?
No.
I mean, has he not come forward and said that, you know what, and been very remorseful from the day that it happened? It's understood that he overreacted. His sport is a high-energy, high-profile sport. I mean, it's a high-energy game.
You have to control your temper. Control your temper.
And he's served a fair amount of time. He served a huge suspension already.
What about the guy who broke his neck and everything?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. There's no doubt that the actions, and maybe you do hold out for that period of time because Scott, unfortunately, has been laid up for that period of time.
I think we should hear from the honorary captain of the Edmonton Oilers, right? 75th anniversary of the NHL, weren't you made the honorary captain?
Was honorary captain. Didn't improve my hockey skills, but I was going to say that we get sort of complacent about the violence in hockey because it's good, and in fact the bar goes when there's a fight. It's a part of hockey, so we get used to it. And I was actually kind of teetering. Would I want him to play, represent Canada, wear the flag, the whole thing, until I saw a longer clip and I saw him tail him for 30 or 40 seconds before he smashed his head in. And that's when my mind switched, and I said no. If it's a moment, and it's, I'm trying to react, but he tailed him and couldn't get him, and then just smoked him.
That these guys are also making that this is different. Like, you could make the case that he should be reinstated to play in the NHL if the NHL was playing. But now he's representing Canada, and there's a whole different judgment value system, I think, that goes into saying, we'll approve him to play for us. And the question that I threw out that Bruny answered was, do you want him to play for us? Then playing professional,
or is he a distraction to the team now?
Well, there's no doubt that there's going to be the media trying to distract the flow of the team and its bonding and its togetherness, and should this guy be on. But I still believe that the guy has served his time. He is remorseful. He's shown remorse. He's absolutely stated from the moment after it happened, boy, did I get caught up in what was going on. And I don't believe that we have to reprimand or constantly put down a guy that obviously feels that he's made a mistake and is probably a different hockey player, and will be able to show and prove that he's a different hockey player the moment he steps back on the ice. He just hasn't had that chance yet.
But he's still a professional, right?
And he is a product of his sport.
Without question, and he is also, you got to say, one of the best in the sport. And if he's representing this country and we want a gold medal at the World Championships, we're better off with Todd Bertuzzi than we are without him. What do we want from 2010 and the Vancouver Whistler Olympics? The Canadian government has kicked more money in. What's reasonable expectation?
That's like picking stuff out of the air. So you're a magician, and you're going to be really rich if you can tell us what we're going to do or what we need to do. But what we need to do is to have a country that's comfortable with the team we're sending and believes in them. We've done the most we can do to make this the best team we can, within reasonable limits. We've got health care, we got this, we got the other thing. But let's send a team that we're comfortable with, and stop complaining once it's done. Because we want to feel good about our athletes.
Some things that need to happen, I really do believe that there needs to be a focus and an emphasis on a few select sports. We've got to try to stop being all things to all people and really focus in on the talent. And I believe that Kathy Priestner has done a great job in focusing in and violating and evaluating the sports scene as it is, and actually came out with this great report that really showed, and it was quite interesting, with sports like bobsled. Bobsleigh being sort of a Tier 2 or Tier 3 team, although we've got some great bobsledding going on there. Pierre Lueders is, setting the world on fire, 2-man and 4-man. They're looking at who's coming up behind him, who's the new driver coming up.
We all say that we got to support, right, and that athletes got to feel. Athletes
well,
like Jeff now, we got to feel
like.
The
Olympics, I want him to feel like we're behind him. I don't want him to feel intimidated by the fact that I have to.
And he needs the support.
Let me ask Bruny. Did you feel as though, especially through the early part of the 90s and into 1996 and beyond, did you feel as though this country gave you as much support as you would have liked?
Of course, that we always want more. But one thing that's always bothering me, like they don't have a solid program for the youngers who's coming. And also, I don't think Canada has a program also, like when the athletes are finished and everything. Not that I'm retired, I was well prepared. Like when the athletes finish also, they have nothing.
High-profile track and field, man. You were rolling in the
No, seriously. They have nothing ahead of them. But the main thing is that we don't have a serious program for the younger athletes. And within that,
there's a huge debate going on as where do you start and where do you finish and where does it. But a guy like Jeffrey's got to walk into those Olympic Games knowing that everything, he's got to have every resource and every opportunity to be the best that he could be. And Canadians on the street are totally supportive of that type of mentality, of making sure that our athletes have that. there's a disconnect between the people on the street and what's happening in the back rooms of the political
I like
world.
listening to Curt Brown. Yeah, Curt Harnett.
Curt Browning. I had that my whole life. I've been living in the shadows of this guy my whole life. I'm Curt with a C, he's Curt with a K. Got it.
On that note, we go to break.
I think we all feel
And
better
you
now.
know what? This guy's got to fear someone in the year 2010. The judges. That's always a story. We'll talk about that when OTR returns. Hey, take a look at this.
You really want to know what's bothering me? Do you really want to know what's on my mind? Yes.
I'm so tired of lying about it. I'm not bulletproof.
Yeah, he's good, eh? That's Jim Cuddy, Blue Rodeo. Next Tuesday, we were showing you Chris King before. They're all playing in the Juno Cup, which is the real story of the Juno Awards. It's not about the awards, it's about the Juno Cup, and that happens next Friday in Winnipeg. How good is that going to be? All right. We talked about steroids before and the fact that the problem may never change. In that same vein, let's talk about judged sports. There were problems at the World Championships in figure skating lately with the judge making a costly scoring mistake. Worse still, a gymnastics judge was recently suspended over a controversy involving Kyle Schufeld. There is always something, it seems. Is there anything that can ever be done, or is it just something that we have to learn to live with?
You're looking at me. Okay, I think that in a judge sport, if you don't want to deal with all the crap that comes with it, with the human element that's involved, forget cheating. Let's just even call mistakes out. But there's going to be a human element. If you don't want to be a part of it, get out quick, because you can't change it.
A lot of athletes, especially in the figure skating world, have commented on that same thing, and that's really the challenge is the power of the Olympic movement and getting one of those medals around your neck, or the World Championships and a medal around your neck, and really what that means to the growth and prosperity of your career. But let's look to an athlete like, and again, José Chouinard, who is Canada's sweetheart, and everybody's learned, I think, especially with figure skating, even we've now come to expect it with gymnastics. I mean, you learn to accept it and judge the performance based off of what you watched as a spectator.
Okay, but that said, I think there's also been situations where judges really weren't penalized the way that they should have been. I mean, there was a situation in figure skating where a judge was actually tapping his foot, pointing up when he wanted a skater higher, and pointing down to another judge when he wanted it down. And that judge was penalized, but is now back and judging again. I don't think that's right. I think if you make a serious mistake like that, if you're cheating,
Well,
basically.
welcome to the world of the IOC as well, eh?
Yeah.
But I guess the question is for a guy like Jeff, who's like, you can say anything you want. I mean, Jeff, candidly speaking about it, but it's difficult when you're still being judged by those same people. But when you get on the ice, is it difficult at all to block out in your mind the fact that these guys over there really have a subjective ability, even if they're honest, to decide your fate?
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard at all, because, I mean, I enjoy the sport, and I didn't go into it because I had hoped that the judges would put me in first. I entered the sport because, I wanted to do it. So
and
I
you were
think,
shaking your head the same way. You agree with that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it makes reference to what I was saying.
and I think in any subjective sport, you always have to keep
But
that
these guys had it easy, though, right?
I'm convinced that if I was in a timed running sport or a timed biking sport, that I would have a different title. Like basically my career would have been sort of the same, but it would have been, Elvis would have won at Sudbury. There would have been a couple different switches. But
And I salute you, because I could never do a judge sport. But
Look at the
just
judges.
crazy.
I mean, you go to the 100-meter final, like what happened to Linford Christie, for crying out loud, at the Olympics. What was it?
Well, when he
2000, where
false started?
I mean,
It was his fault.
but many years ago, look at tennis. And, there's so many.
Maybe we're going to go to break, but
no matter
maybe
what.
you can explain, why did Linford Christie and why do all sprinters take off their shirts when they get disqualified?
We want to show the muscle.
Absolutely. Finally, an honest answer.
Okay,
Yeah.
first one of the show.
you're disqualified.
Yeah. Out.
On that note, we go to break. As we go to break,
there
we
goes
got
the ratings
tons
there.
of emails when people heard that Jeff Buttle was on the show. This is for you, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, come on. Now that Alex is out of the picture, how long before Marissa and Ryan get back together? We're talking about the OC. Is that going to happen, Jeff Buttle? Will they get back together?
I think on the final episode of the show, when it ends, it might happen.
On that note, we go to break. More OTR in a moment.
Closed captioning of this TSN program is brought to you in part by Extra, the gum that doesn't give up.
The 2005 NWHL Championship, tomorrow at 3.
Outside of the host, this may be our most accomplished show ever as it winds down. How many medals have you guys all won? How many, Bruny, Surin? Worlds, Olympics, all of that?
Probably 5, 6.
Oh, that's cool. When you don't know how many, that's cool. So I'm going to think between us, let's say 15 between the 5 of us. Good with that?
Yeah.
It's going to be a medal-winning show for you next Wednesday because we get to talk about steroids in the NHL in a way that few can because we got it right from the horse's mouth. We've got Dave Morrison, wrote a book. He'll join us Wednesday on Off the Record. Love today's show. Jeff Buttle, congratulations. I'm a big figure skating fan. I broadcast figure skating back in 1988. Congratulations on your silver medal.
Thank you kindly.
So tell me about Stars on Ice. You've just confirmed your appearance in all 12 shows across Canada, right?
Yeah, it's really exciting because the HSBC Stars and Ice, brought to you by Smuckers, they actually don't usually have amateur athletes on the tour. So when I was asked to do 2, I was happy. When I confirmed on all 12, I was ecstatic.
And you're going to be there too, right?
I'm going to be there.
You're the leader of Stars and Ice.
I'm the only guy who's been there every year.
We should put,
it's a lot of fun.
We should put the website up while we're talking about 12 appearances across Canada. We're talking from Halifax to Victoria, 12 appearances, and you know what? It's a dynamic show, and you get to go out and cheer this guy, Jeff Buttle, for winning silver medal.
Congratulations.
Tell me, we'll roll some highlights of you winning your silver medal. Tell me, as you stepped onto the ice, how you were feeling, knowing that Plashenko Wright had bowed out of the competition, and you had a great chance at a bronze or better.
Yeah, actually, so he withdrew only hours before the competition, so I ended up skating earlier than I had expected, but I mean, so there was that pressure knowing that I was in contention for a medal, and I went out there, and I mean, I made a couple of mistakes, but I recovered really well, so I was happy with that.
Which is so much the key to what you do, especially when not everyone is going to be perfect, right? The key is you got to be better than the other guys on that given day, is getting over more. Right. That's why people say, well, you know what, he may have fallen a couple of times. I say, that doesn't matter. The key is you were better than everyone else but one on that day, and that's the key.
Any given Sunday, yeah.
And getting over those problems. Congratulations on that. Go out and check out these guys, Stars on Ice, across the country. Thanks for doing Off the Record. Please come back.
I will.
Bruny, Surin, what's going on with you and that natty-looking jersey that you got on?
Yeah, you know, I've been working quite a few years on that clothing line, and finally we're gonna launch it in September. Now we have some sport expert that already gonna carry it, and now we're knocking on doors on a nice store to carry the line.
That's a good-looking shirt. So,
yeah.
Extra large, is athletic wear?
Extra large. I take care of you.
You're supposed to grease the host?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I won't forget that.
And look out for this man. He's got a bunch of supplements coming out as well in the future, so you can get bigger legally. And Curt Harnett, what's going on with you?
For me, it's the same, well, I was going to say the same stuff every day, double S, double D, but of course promoting the Princess Margaret Hospital's Foundation's fundraiser with the Blue Band, so please visit my website and I'll direct you over to buy some bands, much like the Lance Armstrong Live Strong thing, $2, and support your Conquer Cancer cure for Princess Margaret Hospital Foundation. So do that, but other than that, hey man, where's spring? I'm waiting for it to show up here.
Because you're trying to sell your car, right?
No, that's right.
Sorry. We're out of time. Guys, this was a great thrill for me. Thank you all for doing Off the Record. Look for Dave Morrison next Wednesday, and we're saying goodbye to one guy on our crew, Devin Armstrong. Guy's amazing. See you soon, Devin. Thanks for joining us.
Off the Record with Michael Landsberg is brought to you by the Keg Steakhouse and Bar. For great steaks, good friends, see you tonight. Michael Landsberg's clothing provided by Victorinox, Swiss Army. Available at Sporting Life in Toronto and better specialty stores across Canada.